Save your pity for the weak. Let go, no more excuses. Let go of the life you've known. Listen to your intuition. Don't let fear control. Let go of the life you've known. Don't let fear control. I won't live at the bottom anymore. Destroy the weakness. So be on top of the world. Extermination. Taking over the world.
All right, good night, everybody. Good Lord, it's like I'm already signed off when we just started. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back. And as you can see, we're going to talk about a lot of different interesting topics this evening. We're going to start off with some Missouri-based stuff. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it because I really want to get into the cult members. I think the thing I want to get to most is the cult members here in America and up there in Canada. But the hatred on Thomas Massie over the last week or so has been absolutely mind-bending. So we want to touch on that a lot, and we also want to touch on Trudeau's resignation because I'm sure so many people like you and I are sad to see that big steaming pile of horse dung say his
Devastated.
goodbyes.
Devastated.
It
The only
is.
word I have to describe how I feel about I'm still sad about it. I was crying before we came on. So hopefully I can hold it together tonight.
Yeah, we'll try not to cry on our desk, and I don't want to ruin this perfectly good keyboard, so I should have worn a bib to catch all the tears, and I didn't. But let me get the recording started, and we'll get this show on the road.
In the restaurant of life, we're putting freedom back on the menu. It's the Missouri Liberty Report with John Williams, working with grassroots organizations and legislatures to make Missouri the freest state in the nation. Let freedom ring.
All right, folks, and we are back with another edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Thanks to all of you who continue to watch on YouTube, Rumble, listen on the radio, or on the podcast side. Greatly appreciate each and every single one of you all. And in the live chat right now, we've got Voodoo Queen and Catherine Dreyer and some other unknowns. Rumble side, it's just one. It's fine. Listen, people, I know we keep talking about the same old. It seems like we're talking about the same old thing, and I just want to tell you, Tom Martz is also in the house. Good to see you all. But I think this is going to be probably maybe the end of the discussion on this Sparks thing. I just wanted to share with you a couple other little, let me pull up the right photo if I could, for the love of God. Okay, well, why didn't I pull that one up right? Probably because I'm too stupid. Okay, let's see. Let me get this blown up, and I'll share it on my screen over here. So this came from Scott Fawn. He posted this on I originally saw this on Facebook. I think he also posted it on X. And it says, leaders in the South County Police Association are in the process of removing their names from Representative Justin Sparks' Political Action Committee and terminating the PAC. So our good friend Catherine, let me turn this off now. Our good friend Catherine Dreyer, she's the bomb at this whole digging through all this horrible stuff called MEC. It's like a nightmare that never ends when you go on that site and try to look stuff up. You have to know what you're doing, and Catherine and Kirby are definitely really good at this. So let me pull up the first image. So actually, let me pull this up. So if you go to Sparks's MEC report, which again Catherine was so nice to do for us. You'll see that, and this is Sparks' PAC. All right, so this is Justin Sparks' PAC. Okay, and you'll see treasurer and deputy treasurer is Joe Patterson. All right, so let me hopefully I picked the right photo here. Let me blow this up so everybody can see it. And you can see the St. Louis County Police Association, the executive director is also Joe Patterson. So Joe Patterson was the executive, or is the executive director of the St. Louis County Police Association, also the treasurer for Sparks's PAC. That is being dissolved, and I think it actually is dissolved. I believe Catherine sent us a photo of saying that it was being it was like a dissolution type of document at the MEC. So that's done. We don't know exactly why. I just wanted to bring this. Okay, so Catherine says it is dissolved. We don't know why exactly. There wasn't a whole lot of other information. It was just said that Sparks's PAC is going to be dissolved, which that was posted the other day, and now it is officially dissolved. We don't know why. We don't know why the St. Louis County Police Association just suddenly backed off. We don't know if the heat got turned up because, this show, Brandon and I and Tom and Catherine brought this situation to light, and I am going to have to give a lot more credit, especially to Catherine, but also Tom, on this issue because they were way more knowledgeable than I think I could speak for both of us, Brandon, than you and I were on this subject. So major props go to Catherine and Tom on this subject matter because they worked their tail ends off to find out what they could find. This seems to be done now, or at least the Sparks PAC is done. What comes after that, we don't know. I don't know what's coming down the pike on this. I have no clue. I just wanted to kind of, as far as I'm concerned right now, just end this saga or story. And if anything else comes about later, we'll talk about that. Now, again, I want to bring up an interesting point. Now, this was something that somebody else brought up, but it is true that a lot of the organizations out there that wanted, I guess I should say this. The vote for Speaker of the House, when it came down, Sparks got 10 votes. Everybody else voted for Patterson. And so I wanted to bring this up because a lot of groups were saying that, you could see it all over social media. Anybody that voted for Patterson as Speaker of the House was a rhino. And then you had your Democrats, but all the Republicans that voted for Patterson are rhinos. Okay, let's just, and then somebody else said this today too. The word rhino has been thrown around so much that you don't even know what it hardly means anymore. Anytime the freedom groups disagree with something a Republican does, if they maybe fall in line with the Democrats, or they don't vote the way they think they should vote, they're a rhino. Okay, so Sparks was supposed to be the savior of, I guess, the House this year, which, let's say, okay, I think Sparks would have probably been a better Speaker of the House than Patterson. But would all of the House reps suddenly grown a spinal cord to reverse all the rules that got set 2 years ago that ruined a lot of crap in the House to begin with? Because you still have the HRCC and all their money floating around in the system. You have all this lobbyists. Would everything just suddenly reverse course and went back to the old way or the way it was done a few years ago? I doubt it, because the HRCC has their tentacles in everything, and they're not easy to investigate and find a lot of good information on. They're just, we know it's lobbyist money, lobby, 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 lobby. It reminds me of that episode of Monk. I don't know if anybody ever watched the show Monk. The guy had horrible OCD, and he was sitting in an elevator, and he was scared of heights and scared of elevators, of course. So he just kept hitting the L button, going lobby, 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 driving this other woman in the elevator absolutely nuts. And that's the way the Missouri chambers are. Lobby, 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 lobby. So if Sparks would have gotten Speaker of the House, do I think that maybe the rules would have all went back? I'm going to say I'm not sure that would have happened, because I think the HRCC and lobbyists wanted the House rules that way. It wasn't necessarily Plocker came up with these all on his own, and a majority of them fell in line. I think this is lobbyist money wanting those rules changed because they want their bills to get the preferential treatment. And Holly Jones stated she was going to vote for Patterson. Now, I find this humorous. Don't get me wrong. But she was going to vote for Patterson because she thought the bills would get through. Her bills would have a chance to go through if she voted for Patterson. I don't see that as a guarantee. The way things have gone for good freedom bills, it doesn't go very well in the House for the freedom bills. So I'm just like, okay, maybe your bills see the light of day, but you think Patterson's going to give you, if it's a good freedom bill, as much smack as even some of these reps talk about Patterson, that suddenly he's going to be like, oh, you voted for me and all your bills are just going to live, happily ever after. I don't see that happening either. So it's an interesting story. There were facts that need to be told. But on this note, because I've got, again, as John does every week, he starts talking and he goes off-road and he gets off topic. The original point of the whole thing, this rant from the beginning, was the Rhino talk about everybody who voted for Patterson as Speaker of the House position starting this session. All right. Those people that called him a rhino also called a bunch of people that voted for the school choice bill last session rhinos. Who also voted for the school choice bill? Justin Sparks. So is he now not a rhino because the new session started and because he was running against somebody that you hate even more, that's even bigger rhino? Suddenly he's no longer a rhino? I'm just trying to get this straight so I can keep up with it, because I get really confused by this stuff at the end of the day. So Catherine says the House would have had to vote on a new rules package. Sparks could have introduced one, but he didn't have the sole power to change the rules. I doubt the House would have voted to change them. Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts. All right, Brandon, anything you want to add to that before we get on to the other goodies that we have for this evening?
No, not much to add. I just kind of like what you were saying, though. The story itself is just interesting, but the House has voted. The House has voted on the speakership, so there's not a lot to this story anymore. It is just weird that the St. Louis he's pushing for earmarked $6 million earmarked to the St. Louis County Police Officers Association for them to build a daycare facility. And his campaign is being ran. It's just mucky politics. It just is what it is. Someone's in charge of one board and they're in charge of someone's campaign, and that guy's asking for money for that organization. He's also working for another organization who's also asking for part of that money. It's all just normal, dirty politics, and as usual, but he's the less rhino guy right now. So
yeah, that's really what it is. I mean,
whatever.
Yeah, that's really what it is. He's less rhino than other rhinos, and he's still not he's not constitutional by any means. So, I mean, a lot of people are bringing up the fact that Patterson is since Patterson voted yes on he voted no on the SAFE Act, that makes him some kind of monster, which I kind of agree. If you voted against the SAFE Act, then you're kind of a piece of crap.
Remind me again, what was the SAFE Act?
That was the one that wouldn't allow, which it did pass, the one that would not allow trans surgeries or hormone treatments or anything on any kids that were minors. It just wasn't allowed on minors. He voted against it. He has his reasons. I don't know why exactly. But, a lot of people beat him up over that, and rightfully so. I think if you voted against not protecting kids, you're kind of a turd.
Well, was that tied? Do you know just offhand if that was tied to women, to biological males playing in women's sports?
I think that was a separate issue. I think the SAFE
Oh.
Act was mainly just about the transitioning.
surgeries.
Yep. And
Yeah,
all
or
the
the hormone.
Yep, and the puberty
replacements.
blockers and everything.
Yeah.
I think that was the earmark, and then you had a separate bill on men transitioning to women and playing in women's sports. It was protecting women's sports was a separate bill. So yeah, Catherine said it was a separate bill. Let's see. So, yeah, Tom says that Sparks is just a rhino with earmarking street cred. So yeah, there's that.
Earmarking street cred.
And we're talking about what we're talking about right now with this these freedom groups and all this stuff, and the way they kind of bounce back and forth, and they're talking of rhinos and all this stuff. And again, the rhino almost loses its definition when it's just like saying, oh, well, you're a homophobe. It's that word, that phrase, these phrases have been thrown around so much, they lose their they lose their punch, because you're like, what? Like, I'm not a homophobe. Like, what do you? But it used to be a showstopper. If you called somebody that, then that was supposed to trigger something in your head to stop listening to that person, because you don't want to listen to a bigot like that. You don't want to be associated with a homophobe. And now it's not working as well. Rhino is another one. Transphobe doesn't work as well now. I didn't pull up the clip, but Bill Maher had a little clip. There was a clip on YouTube of Bill Maher. There was some Democrat. Tom March says, "Are they rhinophobic?" Oh yes, they're rhinophobic now. We'll have to call them that. But some Democrat, I don't know if it's a California state rep or senator or something. Anyway, this politician said, I don't think that men should compete in women's sports, but if I say that out loud, then I'm a terrible person, and, blah, blah, blah. Well, then one of his aides quit because they couldn't work for somebody like that had those comments about the trans community. And Bill Maher said, good, that person should quit, and he should be the one that people make fun of for being too woke. And it's nice to hear Bill Maher say these things when somebody comes out and kind of speaks the truth, and he's just kind of saying it like, hey, I'm against it, but if I say it out loud, then I'm a piece of crap. And one of his aides quits because I don't hear this about the trans community. Well, I would hope that politician said, well, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you then. Just
Yeah.
go pee up a rope somewhere, dude. I'm not going to miss you when you're gone. Sorry. It's just my opinion. You don't like my opinion. Fine. Well, opinions are like a-holes, and everybody's got one, and a lot of them stink. So there's that.
Yeah. Bill Maher, he's like once every 3 months, he'll say something that you kind of agree with. He's not great, but he's just marginally better than Stephen Colbert. Just marginally better. But he has some he says some dumb stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like on his podcast too. Like he's got his show that he does, but he also does like a podcast on the side. Just says some really dumb, just classical California liberal stuff, which I'm glad we're going to talk some more about California and the wildfires, because I got something teed up on that too. But no, if you're a politician, you really should want your aides to be thinking like you, like, wouldn't you want, like-minded? I don't know. That whole thing is, yeah, I would. Whole thing's stupid.
I would definitely, if I was a state rep and I had an LA, let's say I was trying to be as constitutionally minded as I could possibly be, and then my aide hated the word Constitution and thought it was a document made up by a bunch of slave-owning white males who still want to oppress everybody, I would not want that person as my LA. Because
or even the person who's like, the Constitution is fluid. Those people, that was popular. Yeah. That was a popular phrase like 5 years ago. The Constitution's fluid, and you bend it to the needs of society.
So yeah, if you have that, so anytime someone comes to your office to talk to you about something, and it might be something really freedom oriented, like getting rid of some regulations or something, or getting rid of a tax for everybody, not a tax credit, but just a tax elimination for every person in the state, let's say. And then your LA's like, well, I'm not sure he'd like that because that pays for this or that. And you hear that later and go, you're going to go, and I'm going to send you to the doctor's office to take a drug test because I think you should know better than that I would not support any type of taxation like that. So you are going to be go check for every drug and alcohol on the market because I don't trust you now. That person's fired, Yeah. But it's so, I don't know. It's dumb. Anyway, so the first topic that I want to get into tonight, talking about cults, is just the pure idiocy that we have all seen said about the most constitutional member of Congress in Washington, D.C., Thomas Massie, because he didn't want to vote for Speaker Mike Johnson, and he's speaking out. And this is where the word rhino has lost its definition, is people all over the internet. And Brandon, I'm sorry because I have old man brain. Did you pull the clips of Massie firing? Do you pull the picture of him calling him cat poop and DC drainage?
Yes.
Okay.
So I just kind of roadmap this a little bit. If you want to pull up, this is just a good example of, I mean, just a good own. So if we've talked about cat turd a couple times the last couple weeks and about how cult-like some of the MAGA people are. So if you go to Thomas Massie 6 picture, that's a good one of just a good place to start because it's a tweet conversation where Thomas Massie says, let's be clear, the FBI does not need a spectacular new building. And then Cat Turd says, let's be clear, the Republican Party gave them everything they wanted and renewed FISA. Amazing you're talking when you failed us so miserably. And then Thomas Massie replied to that, I voted against that. This is your guy. How does the kitty litter taste? And it's Donald Trump's tweet. It's Donald Trump's post on Truth Social talking about how he's going to build the FBI some big grand new building.
Oh God, I love this stuff.
With Mike Johnson, so Thomas Massie was obviously against Mike Johnson being Speaker of the House, who Trump ended up endorsing for Speaker of the House. And so when Massie and a couple others came out against Mike Johnson for Speaker, there was like it caused a big ruckus in, MAGA land. So then if you want to pull up Thomas Massie 7. All right. Basically, Cat Turd and all of these other guys had been coming at Thomas Massie, calling him a rhino, like you were saying. So he tweeted out, who are the most nintarded paid influencers on this platform? Does anyone else compete with cat poop and DC drainage for this title? And I had to look up what nintarded was.
Yeah, nanarded. I don't.
Nanarded.
Somebody posted nanarded down below it in one of the things, and what was it? I don't remember what it was.
I mean, it's something. I'll just look it up really quick. Hey, I'm on my computer. I'll look it up.
Because somebody literally replied below it on X or quote tweeted it on X and then put that on there, and
It's showing me results for Menards. And,
Let's see. Let me see if I can.
see if you can find it. I'm looking.
Let's see. Yeah, I'm not seeing the actual tweet where it said that, you know.
But anyway, the point is that all of these MAGA people were coming at Thomas Massie for not voting for Mike Johnson for speaker, talking about how like you have to be fully committed to Trump's agenda. He's never made a mistake before. You're either with us or you're against us. I've been here since day one, bro. And
such morons.
Anyway, Cat Turd replied with this like, I've never taken a dime from any political party or organizations. I ratio you at will with half my brain tied behind my back for free. Which is just about the dumbest comeback. Like, with your brain tied behind your back, it just doesn't. It's just a dumb thing to say. You'd think if you're at a keyboard with time to reply, you'd come up with something at least better than that. But then everyone was blasting him because he doesn't actually take money from like a PAC per se. Like he doesn't like some of these influencers actually take like PAC money from like Democrats and other groups, but he's still a grifter. Like he's still a paid influencer. Like he gets paid to influence, and he makes a lot of money just being like the MAGA all the time guy. And so it's still true what Massie said. Doesn't make it not true. But then there's the other guy that he mentioned, and that was this guy named DC Drano, who's been in the same league, like the same like Thomas Massie sucks. He's not with us. And he tried to do the same thing. So if you want to pull up Thomas Massie 1.
Hold on.
Oh, go ahead.
So a nanard is a person that is so retarded that in order for them to be told they are a retard, it must be said in their own language. Thanks, Catherine. That was an Urban Dictionary. Oh, my
nice.
God. So which one you want me to pull up, bro?
Thomas Massie 1.
Okay, here we go.
And so he tried to say the same thing that Cat Turd did. What's funny is no one pays me to call out your hypocrisy and anti-Trump obstructionism. Anti-Trump obstructionism. That's like the phrase. That's the phrasing. I do it all for free. And then
community notes. Oopsie.
Yeah, came in instantly with the Drain the Swamp Media was paid $164,000 by that group. If you go to Thomas Massie 2, you'll find out that he took PPP money for his business, which I'm pretty sure is just like posting online.
Yeah.
So there's again him taking money.
Yeah, because they got $164,000 to promote Amendment 3 in Florida. So.
And then there's Thomas Massie 3 is kind of the same thing.
Oh, yes. Let's check this one out here.
It's a tweet by Martha Bueno. He's basically, she said, it's a good thing I have the receipts. Not only do you get paid even more money after I posted about you taking money, but you were supporting a monopoly against over 10,000 Floridians. You're a liar and a piece of poop emoji. And it turns out that in July of 2024, he took $59,000 from the Smart and Safe Florida PAC, which all of the influencers, I mean, I'm sure a lot of the ones that are popular, a lot of them take money for tweets. It's like part of the business, but don't act like you don't. Don't try to come at the most like, the most, the blanking right now on the word. The most ethical member of Congress. Don't come at the most ethical member of Congress while you take money to tweet and then lie about it. So he ended up, Thomas Massie 4 is just the picture of the post getting deleted. But then Thomas Massie 5, if you want to pull that one up, that's just funny.
All right, let me see if I can find it here. Here we go. Oh, yeah. Yeah, this one's good.
For anyone listening, it says Libertarians after 1 month, and it's got a picture of Thomas Massie. I'm assuming either his freshman year or short, like not, one of his earlier days in Congress where he's got this young, chipper smile. And then it says Libertarians after 1 year, and it's got that picture of him looking drained
Like,
when he
oh
came
my
back from
God,
Christmas
these
with a goatee
people,
and a
yeah.
beard.
Like, these people are so dumb. Look, they've aged me 20 years in a matter of months. That's exactly what he looks like. Like, geez Louise, these people are stupid. And again, folks, talk about cults. Okay, so if you are somebody, again, it's easy to hate on the Democrats, especially the Democrats of today. I mean, every time you turn around, they're saying something insanely stupid. And, as in the words of Thomas Massie, nanarded. They're saying things that are really nanarded, right? And it's so easy to look at them and go, what are you doing? What are you thinking? Well, what is your deal? But when you have these people, anti-Trump, what was
Obstructionist.
Obstructionist?
Anti-Trump obstructionist.
You should just leave the Republican Party and go join the Democrats. You should all be lumped under one umbrella. You might think you're fighting for different things, but at the end of the day, you're fighting for big government ideas. That's all you're doing. Trump's got a lot of big government ideas. Mike Johnson's got a lot of big government ideas. And it's people in Trump's cabinet have big government ideas. And you can't see past your fangirl oogling of Trump to see that you're also a big government cult member. So, again, you can't take these people seriously. But if I had some kind of power and they're like, hey, you have the power to choose what people to lump in what groups, the people who are diehard Democrats and these diehard Trumpians who can't see the forest through the trees, I would take and lump them all into one category. And I would just, above the building that they all lived in, it would just say dummies. I wouldn't have to put up a bunch of sentences to describe what was going on, or I could call it the building of dumb.
Just the sheep. Just the sheep.
Yeah, I could just put a big sheep, a picture of a sheep on a sign and call it the bad apartments, and everybody like, oh, that's where the Democrats and the Trumpian cult members live at there, or anybody who thinks that you could say same thing about people who fawned over Nikki Haley or anybody, and most of these other people. You could all shove them in those apartment buildings, and it would be a fun pay-per-view if you put cameras in the hallways as they're beating the snot out of each other. I'm not going to lie, but it's just, good God almighty, it's hilarious.
The worst part of it is that if you talk to a Democrat about Trump supporters, they'll say it's a cult. If you talk to Democrats if you talk to Republicans about Democrats, like the classic MAGA people, if you talk to them about Democrats, they'll tell you they're all brainwashed and that they're all in a cult. And the truth is they're both in a cult. That's the worst part, is when conservatives try to act like the Democrats are just all in this cult think tank mentality. But then this is actually, if you look at the voting record of Republicans, so it's not just like Trump endorsed Mike Johnson, and then Mike Johnson got 98% Republican support in the House for his speakership vote. I mean, almost unanimous, all Republicans behind him. So it's not just that Cat Turd is the fringe. Cat Turd is there are a lot of statists. There are a lot of, I will separate Republicans from MAGA a little bit. MAGA, Republicans are actual deep statist, fund Ukraine, the Ann Wagners of the world. And then there's MAGA, which is just a little bit outside of that, but it's still think this way or you can't be in the club anymore.
Yeah, there's I guess you would say different clubs of the same party. or different. It's like you could take the party and divide it 70-30 or 50-50. They're the same party. They bicker within on each other, but at the end of the day, they're going to still report. They're still going to support Republican things, no matter how big government they are. At the end of the day, most of those people are going to be like, big government, but our guy's doing it. Yay! We might not like each other, but it's still the big government that we like. So, hurrah! It's stupid.
Oh, the proof is how man, blanking again. Bad night for blanking.
It's a blanking kind of night.
Lindsey Graham gets elected, like re-elected. Like he gets elected and then does everything horrible that he does in the Senate, and then wins a primary. Not just like wins a general because he's the incumbent, he's already put in it, like a presidency type thing. No, he wins a primary against other Republicans every time he's up for Senate. And that's the crazy part to me. That's why, like, it's not just like it's not just the Republican politicians. It's like the mindset of the cult voters will continue to support people like Lindsey Graham. Makes no sense to me.
And it's the same way in Missouri with Roy Blunt. People just and Ann Wagner. They'll just keep supporting the Ann Wagners and the Roy Blunts because they're not Democrats. And what has that gotten us? These people have to question themselves. They really have to take a look in the mirror and question themselves. If your person decides to send a foreign country money so you can fight a proxy war, and the other side of the aisle also did it, and they just made a different argument for it, you're no better than the other side. But again, Republicans and Democrats they've got this country fooled into thinking that one side is super evil and the other side and their side is really, really good, and they're really doing what's best for you and I. They're trying to help. Democrats still want to run on a platform of supporting the working class. Okay? Well, if your policies that you enact, like higher minimum wage laws and all these other things, destroy the middle class and shut down businesses, it's kind of hard to support the working class when there are far fewer and fewer workers as time goes on. Kind of hard to support the working class when you're helping to eliminate said class. Republicans used to be literally the anti-war party. The Republicans wanted to end the Vietnam War, wanted to do things like that. And now what do? They cheerlead every freaking bomb dropped everywhere, as that's what we have to do to spread freedom around the world. America, baby, America.
There was a period of time where Democrats pretended to be the anti-war party. Like after George W. Bush, like the Barack Obama movement was like we don't need to be in all of these conflicts. Like Iraq, Afghanistan, wow, those were some really bad ideas. And then he just goes and does Libya, and then Syria, Somalia, Pakistan. I mean, he dropped more bombs than George Bush. Barack Obama did. And
drone striked a lot of weddings and stuff. So hey.
Yeah. So bam, there goes your anti-war Democrat right there. So then Trump came in, pretending to be anti-war, and then always gets he didn't start any new wars. And like, we had too many. What do you mean started a new war? We had 7 wars. We were literally engulfed in like the entire Middle East and Northern Africa with AFRICOM. Like we were so expanded. There weren't too many more places left to even start wars. So it's not impressive to me that you didn't start any new wars. You didn't end any wars. You didn't shrink the military empire. And speaking of empire, I just want to talk about it really quick. If you've got any opinions on it, I find it hilarious. I know he's not that serious about some of these, but Donald Trump is like convincing me more and more that he actually wants to like take Greenland and Canada and Panama and just anywhere he's really just set his mind to at this point.
I mean, I don't. sometimes the dude's hard to measure. Like, it's hard to see if he's just saying it to like get people stirred up and get his cult members fired up, because you're like, you can't really do that, right? But he's done it enough to where European nations are like, hey, we're not going to let you do that. Like, they've called him out on it, and I'm just like,
Oh yeah.
what are you doing? Like, I don't know if he's doing it to antagonize them and like poke the bear, because he does love to do that. And I would hope that he knows he can't do that. But
Well, this
everything's
could be
questionable at this point.
it could be a classic tactic of like, we're gonna make Canada the 51st state, and they're like, what? No, you're not. He's like, okay, we'll put a 25% tariff on all your stuff. Well, we can live with that. Yeah, we could do that. Trump's gonna be like, we're gonna take Greenland. They're gonna be like, no. Well, we're gonna put some more military bases on there to fight against Russia in the Arctic Straits, and they're gonna be like, okay, fine, we'll do that.
I think that's what it is. It's his weird way of bargaining. But at this point in time, with our foreign policy, I would be surprised by nothing anymore, because most people in government don't seem to understand what lines they should not cross, because they not only step over a line, they'll run back 100 yards and take a really good long run to enable a real long jump over said lines. It's like they'll do it, they'll land, they'll crap on your property and go, ta-da, and then paint a picture with the feces, and you're like, what are you doing? They're like, that's our foreign policy. Did you have a flag? No. Well, and they plan ours, and they're like, now you do. It's called the United States Empire. So, again, nothing surprises me anymore. And when you can get people to think that that would be a great idea, that's the thing that scares me more than Trump saying these things is that people buy into it and think it's cool. That's the part that bothers me. It's like they think like, oh yeah, we're going to take Greenland. And it's like, okay, did you take your medication today? You know we're not supposed to do that, right? It's its own separate country. Do you know that, right? You got it? Our job is not to keep, we shouldn't try to be Britain pre-World War II now and be like, well, Britain fell off the wagon, so we're going to start planting our flag in all these countries and making an even bigger empire so we can bankrupt ourselves even faster. It's just mind-boggling at this time. Yeah. And Catherine says, what happened to America first? That's a very good question. What did happen to America
well,
first?
To answer Catherine's question, if you make more land mass America, that technically you might be putting someone else first, but if you make them American, that is technically America first. That's a loophole workaround I think Trump's trying to work here. No, but you're totally right. I mean, we're $36 trillion in debt. The federal government owns way too much land out west anyway. Like, we need to be selling off more federal land to pay off some of our debt, not looking to acquire more for billions. And even if it did happen, like hypothetically speaking, we found a way to like buy Greenland. You think we're going to benefit off of that? No, that land's going to get divvied up to the richest people in the world to go just take the minerals and resources and exploit, any taxpayer dollars we put into it to establishing private corporations to come and take all the resources. And then we're not going to see any of that benefit later. So even if even if the crazy thing happened, we bought Greenland, it is not going to help the average person one bit. There's no part of that that's America first.
Maybe they could put a bunch of resorts on it and then build like a train, like train tracks on top of the ocean. Everybody could just take a train to Greenland and spend time at the Greenland resort or something. Maybe that'd be about the only thing. But then the price would be so ungodly high. Again, only the wealthy could afford to go to Greenland.
Right. It would just be a luxury for rich people. Yeah. It has nothing to do with me here in Missouri. I'm not going to benefit from that one.
I wouldn't want to go to Greenland anyway because it's Greenland, and I don't know that there's anything there that's that interesting that I would just be.
Someone tweeted out. It was a fake report. It was like reports that Donald Trump no longer wants to buy Greenland after hearing from Donald Jr. It's mostly ice.
Yeah, I mean That also would not surprise me if that was actually factually accurate. Again, nothing surprises me with these people anymore. Again, the way we started this whole thing off, when you have when you have several people calling Thomas Massie a rhino, honestly, we shouldn't even have to say anything else on this show. We should just come on and go, hey, there's a bunch of people that said that Massey's a rhino. We go, ha ha, and then we just move on. It's like a joke that just told itself. And you shouldn't even have to lay out the reasons why that is so dumb. But you see enough people regurgitating this nonsense because they're not going along with their savior personality, Trump. Tom Massey's not. And how dare you go against, what would I say? Donald Christ or whatever they probably call him in their freaking houses when they're praying. Bunch of freaking weirdos.
Darn it. Man, I'm having a rough night tonight. Anyway, if you want to pull up Thomas Massie 8, this story does have a twist at the end here.
All right, let me find it. Okay, let's see. Let me get my display capture up. Go ahead.
Remember when, this is another tweet from Cat Turds. I really just put the icing on the cake here. Remember when Trump-hating Thomas Massie on his official Congress account unprovoked attacked me a few days ago, claiming I was a paid grifter who was paid for my political opinions? I do. So him and his team of cringe, butthurt, de-simp losers did every kind of research trying to prove I was wrong. They couldn't because they're liars. I've never taken a dime. So what did Tommy do? The most honorable guy, according to himself in history. Did he say, my team looked into this and Cat Turd is right, he's never taken a dime from anyone? Nope. This is a slam dunk defamation lawsuit. Stay tuned.
And
we will be staying tuned,
and
Sir Cat Turd.
That's the thing. He never called Cat Turd out by his name. He said cat poop. In all those tweets, he's never said cat turd. He said cat poop. He said, how's the kitty litter taste? But he, like in the one, he said cat poop. Massie knew what he was doing when he did that. When he says those things, he's like, if I don't call them out by name, they can't come at me. Even though he's speaking the truth.
He's in his tweet, he said he's a paid influencer.
Yeah, not a grifter.
Didn't say that he was paid by PACs or who pays him. Just that he was a paid influencer. And like that is 100% true. He'll even tell you, like, I made all this money off my podcast and bear hugging Trump naked in the dark. That's what I made all my money doing. My cowboy hat.
Oh, man.
Wearing nothing but my cowboy hat.
Catherine asked, do you think his real name is Cat Turd? I actually do, Catherine. I think his real name is actually Cat Turd. I would not be surprised at all if his name was actually Cat Turd. I think his parents, when he came out of the womb, his parents went, huh, like that. And they're like, and the doctor's like, would you like to name him? And they're like, kind of looks like a cat turd.
The doctor's like 2 words or 1 word? And he's like, 1 word.
1 word. And he can use that as a handle on social media when he grows up. God dang it. You know what? Listen, everybody who knows me, has listened to this show for any length of time or knows me personally, knows how I am not that smart, right? I'm about as sharp as a bag of wet hair. I say that a lot, but I am not that intelligent. But these people make me feel like I should be building a garage in the backyard and designing awesome, technological advances. That's how smart these people make me feel when they talk. And I'm not nenarded because I'm not that severe on the spectrum. But a lot of times I'm pretty retarded, okay? These people make me feel super intelligent. And I think my personal hypothesis is that there are people on this planet who are around So like when you're having a really bad day and you're down on yourself and you watch them operate in life and you're like, well, at least I'm not that stupid. And I think people like Cat Turd and DC Drano are on this earth. We're put here so John doesn't feel like the dumbest person in the room all the time. And I mean that. I mean
You read
that.
some of these tweets, you can push your glasses up a little higher. At least I'm not that guy.
Yeah, yeah. You're like, you almost want you like it almost like makes you want to go buy a really expensive bottle of scotch and just have a nice glass tumbler with a couple of fancy, perfectly square ice cubes and just a nice little pour of scotch, and you sip it like some rich guy in his library in his house or his fancy office. You're like, well, at least I'm not that retarded. You just sip your nice fancy scotch. Yeah.
Oh, so I remembered what I was going to say a second ago. Another reason Thomas Massie was receiving a round of hate is because he voted present, didn't vote nay or yay on the House was sanctioning the International Criminal Court because they found Netanyahu guilty of war crimes. Right. And whenever Putin was found guilty of war crimes by the ICC, everyone and their mother was coming out of the woodwork to talk about how the ICC is the international hand of justice, and Putin ought to submit himself to this hand of justice. And now that it's their friend, now that it's Netanyahu, the guy who pays, for all of their campaigns, over 90% of them, they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Who are these losers coming after our guy? No, you can't have that. Nuh-uh. We're not going to let you do that. Just Thomas Massie had it perfectly right. He's like, do I think the International Criminal Court would have jurisdiction in America? Absolutely no. But am I going to get involved in the international, criminal courts ruling on another country? He's like, it has nothing to do with this. I'm going to vote present because that's all, because that's what matters. And everyone was like, you're an anti-Semite. You hate Jews, clearly, because you hate war crimes. So I guess that's how it works now.
Yeah, again, the inconsistencies are just out there for anyone to see. If you've got eyes to see and ears to listen, you can see and hear the inconsistencies all the time. You're just choosing not to. And that's the crazy part. You're choosing not to see and hear the things that keep you from being that nanarded, okay? That's it. You are putting yourself out there as someone who can't think for themselves. We love to say this, again, these people love to say that about Democrats. These people can't think for themselves. They just buy into the party and blah, 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 blah. They just spew all this trans crap and LGBTQAIA plus whatever crap all over, and they're not thinking for themselves. Clearly, you're not either. Clearly, someone took the MAGA brain or the Trump cult brain, took yours out of your head, put it in there, or you took your own brain out of your head before you went into the Church of Trump and you got preached to, and then you're like, oh, and you let it fill up your head, and you came back out and you put your brain in, and everything mixed together, and you're nanarded. So it's, again, these people are going to, and it'll happen when it's too freaking late. They will at some point come to terms with how wrong they've been, and it will be when it's too late. The majority. There may be a few that snap out of their comas, but just like a whole lot of Democrats and a whole lot of people in this country for years, Iraq War 1 and 2, and all this other stuff, you're gonna figure out at some point how badly you've been screwed over, how badly you've been lied to, and how well it's worked. You should be, when you come out of that, because same way with me. When I was pulled out of my coma by friends who gave me the information, didn't tell me how to think, gave me the information to see what I, came out of it with, I was ashamed of myself and I was angry for falling for this nonsense for so long, not thinking for myself. Most of these people are going to snap out of it at the wrong time, when it's way past time, when it's way too late, And I hope they feel ashamed. I hope there's anger. But I hope that anger and ashamedness is pointed at the right direction. But Brandon's shaking his head, and it won't be. They'll blame the other side because they just didn't do big government good enough.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's like inflation. You can blame Joe Biden for inflation if you want, because inflation occurred worse under him. He didn't print $10 trillion to combat COVID. Like he signed the CARES Act, but that's because it had it would have passed that. It was veto proof passing the House and Senate anyway. During Trump's administration, when he decided 2 weeks to slow the spread and then just kept letting people just trample on your rights over and over and over again. And when he created Operation Warp Speed, I mean, he also, like I said, he continued 7 wars. He was a big part of helping the Saudis start a war against Yemen. He was a huge part in refueling their ships. I mean, there was nothing about Trump that was cutting the deficit or cutting spending. And so when inflation hit Joe Biden, you can all sit around and go, oh, well, Joe Biden was president when things got more expensive. It's his fault. That is not looking in the mirror. That is not acknowledging your savior's own fault in this. And it's gone. I mean, inflation doesn't happen overnight, but he didn't do anything to fix what any of the previous presidents from George Bush, Barack Obama, any of them.
No. And it will continue on now.
Yeah, and like you said, they're just going to continue to blame the other side or just ignore the problem completely and act like it's not a problem. Which is a classic Democrat move for sure.
And again, I'm not going to sit here and say that I did not vote for Trump, because I did vote for Trump because I couldn't stand the thought of Kamala Harris being president. Could not stomach it, okay? Yes, I voted for Trump. But did I vote for Trump thinking that he's going to change his ways and he figured out all the mistakes he made? No, didn't vote for him for those reasons. I didn't think, well, he's going to have all the perfect people in his cabinet and he's not going to have any more swamp creatures in there. I knew that wasn't the case, okay? So I'm not going to sit here and act and say all these things, but I did it with an understanding that he was still going to be far from perfect. So yes, I did vote for Donald Trump because I did not want to see Kamala Harris near that White. It was bad enough she's drunk in her every day for 4 years. I did not want her drunk and at the very top of the pedestal of power. I say that everybody would have been making choices for her, but she would have been extra drunk, and it would have been real easy to persuade her to do weird and idiotic things. So yes, I did vote for Donald Trump because I did not want to see Kamala Harris in that White House. But I also didn't do it and go, well, I can just put my head on the pillow at night and not worry about what's going to happen next. Nope, that was not me. So I want to be forthright because I don't want to be the cat. I don't want to be the cat poops and the DC drainages and all the other idiot MAGA people out there who just wholeheartedly fall in line like they swear up and down they're not going to, like the Democrats do. They're clearly doing it. And it's probably great right now for DC Drano and Cat Turd. The money that's coming to them from all the MAGA people, oh my God, they're probably just got cash just getting helicoptered in. But at what price? You're going to sell yourself out for a cult? And what happens when Trump's gone? And when that train's gone, do you jump and you get out of that cult and go to the next Republican cult? Is that what you do? Because yeah. I'll be honest, and we have to be honest here. Let's say that Thomas Massie ran for president and won. The only thing that you could hope for that Massie would do is veto every stupid bill and put the focus on Congress. And when they go, what is going on? Go, I don't know. Look at those schmucks. They're the ones who can't figure it out. They don't know the Constitution. I do. So if things go bad, don't put it on me. They overrode my veto. And that's all you can get because one person's not going to change everything. Now, if you have a Thomas Massie who is president, and he's doing these pressers and all this stuff, and he's out there delivering the facts and getting them out into the public on a much bigger scale. That is a positive thing. But I don't think for a second also, even if Ron Paul were 20 years younger and he won, you're not going to have this immediate change where kittens and rainbows are going to be falling out of the sky and suddenly leprechauns are handing out pots of gold everywhere and we're all just rolling in the dough. That's not the case. But it does help it would help to have somebody of that mind who is actually a principled person talking to the media all the time, showing them how idiotic they are and how badly Congress has been overrun by lobbyist money, how much they've sold themselves out. It would help to educate the public. But we have to also be honest and say it just because you get a Thomas Massie or a Ron Paul in the White House does not automatically mean that things are just going to instantaneously get better. And these people think this way of Donald Trump. If he just gets back in there, things are just going to start getting better. They're just going to start getting better. Well, you haven't been paying attention to all the Congress critters for all these years. But that also means to me, they seem to want some sort of a dictator. They want a guy to come in and just take power for himself and set things right. I'll say that in air quotes, in their mind, which are going to be big government things. So at the end of the day, you're just getting the same of this repetition, this cycle of tyranny and a lot of spending, and inflation is going to keep going, and things are going to continue to crumble. It's just you got you had a guy that was doing it, back from 2016 to 2020, 8 years ago. And now he's back, and but he's just re-releasing the first album. That's all he's doing. Like a record company took his record and digitally enhanced it so it sounded cleaner, but it's the same damn 10 songs, It's like, can't you put out a new album? He's like, oh, that's all I got. It's like, well, all right then, cool, I guess.
No, you're 100% right. But no, the reason you're not going to see effective change, I mean, it's all tied to the money. That's clearly what it's all about here. Like Donald Trump took all of the same donor money that all presidents take, and then especially with regards to Israel, he's gonna make all of those same Ronald Reagan was on the Johnny Carson show, obviously a very, very long time ago. And even to Johnny Carson was explaining how when the government prints money, when the government, does all of these things and spends all of this money, that's what causes inflation. He's like, adding currency to the supply is what causes inflation. You just don't hear Donald Trump talk like that. I will give him credit. He sounded pretty good on Russia this week. So I'm going to just go, to credit where credit's due, he said the right thing on Russia. He was talking about how Joe Biden wanted to let Ukraine into NATO, and that really upset Putin as one of his red lines. And Trump even said, I understand why that would make someone upset, having a NATO, having someone right on your border like that. And I was like, that's the Trump you vote for right there. Honestly, if the war in Ukraine really ends within the first month or two of him in office, that's what you hang your hat on, going that's why I voted for this guy and not Kamala Harris, because her administration with Joe Biden had 2 years to do anything about that war, and all they did was provoke it harder. They have made 0 steps towards finding actual peace in between Ukraine and Russia. And so, it is different this time around voting for Trump, but it's when you look at the sum of it with his cabinet picks and his rhetoric, you said, you're not feeling this big things are gonna change, we've got our guy in there and he's gonna it's just not the energy.
Yeah, I don't again, I did not expect, I'm not so brainwashed that I think that again, one day he's going to sign some declaration And again, some little Irish, guy is going to show up at my door with a pot of gold and click his heels together and go, "Hey, you're rich now." And you're like, "Well, okay." And then I turn on the news. I'm like, "Oh, wow. They sent these guys out and gave us all pots of gold." Oh, okay. And these are actually, you're like sitting there biting them like the people that win the gold at the Olympics bite their medals. You're like, this is actual gold. This is soft. Oh my God. Like, he sent all these people out to give us our gold. I can't believe this. I don't expect it. It's the federal government, for God's sakes. Do you think that I'm just going to be like, "Oh yeah, I believe wholeheartedly that one day the federal government will just snap back in to its constitutional confines and operate the way they should because one dude got elected?" Like, no, sorry. I have never smoked crack, and that's a lot of crack. Like, even a crackhead would say that's too much crack. Like, if you smoked enough to feel that way, even a crackhead's like, "Hey, give me some. You're smoking it all up, and I can't even get anything from my dealer anymore. You're literally buying up all the stuff that this guy has." And so all I'm getting left is some cheap guy on the other corner who's chopping up bars of ivory soap, and I'm blowing bubbles. So this is crap. Give me my crack rock back. That's the way. It's just like, I don't know. It's again, this is almost humorous to watch. Catherine says my county can't even remain within its constitutional confines. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
again, folks, in my county, after Amendment 3 passed with recreational marijuana, I heard county commissioner going, "Well, we don't want these." They didn't want like the growers being in the county. He's like, because you don't want kids showing up to school high. Like, did you not go to public school?
What? That would be like saying you can't have a distillery in your county because you're worried kids might show up drunk to school. It's like, kids aren't breaking into distilleries to get drunk and like steal the whiskey. That makes no sense.
His opinion was, "Oh, now we got to worry about kids showing up to school high." Like, when I was in school, that happened.
Happened often.
I knew a lot of kids that smoked weed right, like a half an hour before they went to school. It still happens. Just because you have a cultivation outfit in the county, and it's just like, okay, that was the thing that really ate at me. These guys are always, "Well, we got to figure out a way to draw businesses in," but it has to be certain ones. So if it's if it was a marijuana or a big hemp cultivation outfit, we don't want them in the county. But we want a different type of business. It's like, okay, you're complaining that you're saying you want more businesses for the tax revenue and all this. But then you could have some big cultivation outfit come in and maybe employ a lot of people, and you might get a lot of tax revenue. I don't want that type of business. Okay, what are you doing? Okay, fine. Then, but you also don't, our county collector does not want to see personal property tax be eliminated. They don't think, "Oh, that's horrible." So even at my county, it's like, okay, as far as counties go, we're probably one of the more poorer in the state. Gasconade County does not have a huge tax revenue influx, okay, which I'm fine with. I'd rather have lower taxes. But at the same point, they want to gripe and complain on one hand and harp that they really want to draw. How do we get more businesses to come to Gasconade County? How do we do this? How do we do that? And at the same point, but we don't want certain businesses coming in. And I think at one point, several years ago, there was people wanted to open tattoo shops. They're like, in Owensville, they're like, no. And it's just, and one dude had a shop here in town. Now, he did sell like smoking accessories, and he did have like 2 or 3 types of hemp flower. And then there were just rumors. They're like, "Oh, he's selling weed out of that building." It's like, this is why we can't have anything nice, people. The guy opens up a business. He had some good products. He had some good like hemp gummies and stuff like that. And it's like, and you're just ruining it all. You're just destroying everything. You're such a horse's patoot. And so a business comes in, and you're the first thing is, "Oh, you're selling weed out of that building." how about not being an a-hole for a little bit and minding your own freaking business? Again, Main Street's dying. Okay, so a guy comes in, then you just want to spread rumors. Okay, well, if I'm that guy, I'll be like, well, I can move to another town, I guess, and this building will be set vacant again, if that's what you'd like. So, and that's just not this town. That's a lot of small towns all over Missouri. But yeah, it's so dumb. And Gasconade County is still, to me, a little too this isn't the right words to use, but it's the only words I can come up. Like, too old-fashioned in their thinking. Like, there's still too many people think that, like, weed is like, say, oh, look at that weed snorter over there. And it's like, oh my God, he smokes marijuana in his own home. God forbid. It's
like the county executive also is the pastor at the Baptist church.
Yeah, something like that. So they want to enforce, and it's just like, come on. It just, can't you, again, I don't want you to, I don't want a county or a city government that sits there and picks and chooses what kind of businesses come to town. I'll be real honest. When the guy that used to own the McDonald's here in Owensville, if he even smelled that another business was going to try, another like fast food operation was going to try to come in, he would do everything he could to buy up the property before they could get it. Or he had a buddy in the city council to try to say, no, we don't want them coming in. I mean, he was doing everything he could. It's like, oh, you don't like competition? So that means your business is run like crap. And you're afraid that when said business opens, you're going to lose a bunch of it because you provide a crap service. You don't care enough to say, I want my service and my, whatever food I'm selling to be leaps and bounds better than everybody else. Nope, I'm going to use city government to make sure that I don't have any competition. So we've had business owners like that. We got people in this town like this. I'm sure Herman only seems to want to be like a tourist attraction. They don't seem interested in any industry or anything. Like, they want all their money to come from tourism, which, don't get me wrong, that city brings in a lot of money just from like Hermanoff Winery and all the stuff associated with Hermanoff, right? But it's like, you don't want any industry? Like, none? Because, and I'm not saying, now I'm going to say this, and I'm not saying that the people who own the bed and breakfasts should drop their prices so the people that work in town. But the people who work in town, a lot of them have to commute. A lot of them, if they worked in town, wouldn't make enough money to stay at those bed and breakfasts. I'm not saying that those people should adjust their prices down for the people that live in town, because their money's generally not coming from people in Herman. It's coming from St. Louis and everywhere around. But at the same point, it's like, well, I mean, wouldn't you want the people in Herman to have some industry come in and maybe pays good money, and those people could also, if they wanted to, stay at those bed and breakfasts or, pay the prices that come with whatever? I mean, you wouldn't want that? Or is that just something you're not interested in? You'd rather have all the, no offense, Brandon, but some of these hoity-toity idiots from St. Louis coming in? Because let me tell you, when I worked for a local pest control company, two different times I had to go down, I guess what you call First Street, right by the courthouse and right past Hermanoff. And I'm in a 1-ton dually, loaded down, and I'm driving up the street. I'm not going very fast. And people just step out from their cars and just walk right across the street like they own it. And I'm like, this thing doesn't stop on a dime. I could smash you like a bug. So maybe you want to pay attention before I turn you into street pizza. And that kind of crap really irritates me. It's like, oh, you guys just come out of here. You come out of St. Louis and you come down here and you think you own the freaking joint. And it's like, you don't think you have to pay attention to the rules of the road. Like, the trucks have the right of way, jackass. So how about you not just step out in front of traffic, stupid?
You're totally right about that. You think I'm walking all the way to the crosswalk to get across the street? No way, dude. No way.
And there's not even really that. There's not really any crosswalks, so I can't, say, well, they can't. There's just, but they just don't look. They just step out. It's the same way when I would go out Highway T and TT out of Washington to go up towards Lake Sherwood to some customers out there. And certain weekends, there'd be loads of people on bicycles. And do you think they'd move over to the shoulder? No, they just stay, 5-6 feet in the lane, and they just look behind them, looking at you, and I'm like, you want to move over so I can get around you? No, you don't.
On Highway T and TT,
Yeah.
that's crazy. I used to fly. I used to live in Lake Sherwood, funny enough.
And
when I used to drive to Washington, I used to fly.
Yeah, so on Saturdays, they have these big bike runs, and there'd be several bicyclists on that highway. It's like, if you don't get, I instantly thought of George Carlin when he was talking about bicyclists and joggers, how he wanted to just, he's like, hit them and send them, or how'd he put it? Didn't your mother teach you to keep your toys in the yard? It just irritated me so much because they'd look behind them and see you, and they wouldn't move over at all. And they had some shoulder. It's like, get out of the way. So, oh no, I'm so important that I'll just back traffic up for a long time behind me because this is my weekend on the road. And it's like, you're going to have a real bad weekend if you don't pay attention. So, let's see. Okay. Tom says, careful, unless you've ridden a bike, don't judge us for not riding on the shoulder. There's all kinds of crap to flatten tires. I get that. I get that, Tom. But they won't even get close to the white line. They want to be 6-7 feet out, almost in the middle of the lane, and just, it's like, move over a little bit so I can feel safe going around you. I don't even feel safe going around you.
Well, these are not city streets.
No.
These are like back highways with like, they're like hills and curves with like 45, 50 mile an hour speed limits. Like I can't believe you'd even have people would even ride their bikes on that. That just seems dangerous.
And I don't
outside of that, but that's funny that they wouldn't get over for you on T. No. Oh, it's nuts.
It's not, again, I don't expect them to ride on the shoulder the whole time, but I don't expect them also to ride 6-7 foot off the line and see you coming and not even try to move over at all. It's like, I get it. If you go off so far, you could hit stuff that that could cause you to get a flat or, cause you to lose control of your bike. I don't want them riding on the loose gravel off the side. Wouldn't want them to do that because one miscue and you're spilling onto the road. Don't want them to do that. I just would like them to move over enough where cars can safely get around them. Some of them will, but there's a whole boatload that will not. And it just, because I'm on a time schedule anyway. It's like I have certain times that I'm supposed to get to these jobs, and I'm trying to get there a little bit early, or I'd like to get to my jobs a few minutes early, not right on time. And it just drove me absolutely batty. Let's see, what's he say? I'll get over to allow cars around, and generally farm roads are safer than city streets. Yeah. Anyway, I know I'm sitting up here on my soapbox, but that crap, it like, if you're going to ride in the middle of the lane, come on, bro. Let's get back on track. I don't even know how the heck we got here, but here we are again.
I'm going to try to not get too choked up here. If you want to play. So a reminder, apologies to all of our friends in the North. The great comrade Justin Trudeau is stepping down. I'm assuming it's just for poor performance, that he's just like doesn't think he can win another election. So he's just like, I'm out. Done with this. But if you want to just, it's now that he's stepping down, it's great to reminisce of all the great times we had together with Justin Trudeau. One of my personal favorites being the time he pinned a medal on a Nazi. So if you want to pull up for the audience, Trudeau Nazi 1.
All right, so as soon as I click on this, it's automatically going to start playing. So here we go. Pull this up.
Zelensky's speech received at least a dozen standing ovations. There was also one for this man, a 98-year-old Ukrainian Canadian who fought for Ukrainian independence against the Russians during the Second World War.
So yeah, he fought for the Russians, or fought for Ukraine in the Second World War, because that's what
I remember sitting at home. I remember watching this because I was very interested in the whole Ukraine thing, like, since the beginning. And I was watching that going, wait, fought against the Russians in World War II. I was like, I knew that Ukraine didn't become its own independent state until after the fall of the Soviet Union. So I was pretty confident. I was like, wait a minute, is he talking about, I was like, did he fight for the Germans? If he fought for the Russians, he fought for the Germans, right? So then cue Trudeau Nazi number 2. Oh, this might just be the glowing,
Okay, let me pull this
what
one.
what they had to say in the parliament about what they actually said about him.
Okay, here we go.
We have here in the chamber today Ukrainian Canadian world veteran from the Second World War who fought the Ukrainian independence against the Russians and continues to support the troops today, even at his age of 98.
They're all giving him a standing ovation. Can you believe that? Oh, man. Not one person has read a history book. Look at him.
His name is Yaroslav Hunka. And I was going to say he's in the gallery, but I think you beat me to that. But I'm very proud to say that he is from North Bay and from my riding of Nipissing-Temiskaming. He's a Ukrainian hero, a Canadian hero, and we thank him for all his service. Thank you.
Oh, my goodness. There's another they're standing up again. There's another standing ovation.
All right, so there's that stupidity there.
Not one, but 2 standing ovations for the Nazi. Oh my gosh.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. When after the way Trudeau treated his country during COVID, and all those people, most of those people probably supported it. Are you really surprised that they stood up and applauded the Nazi? I mean, they basically were COVID Nazis for the majority of them.
Their enemies are also like they act more like, dictator socialists, but they call everyone a Nazi. Like, that's their go-to. Everyone's a Nazi. Even this last election, right towards the end, they started busting out the old Trump's a Nazi type rhetoric. And so it's just bitter. It's just the most ironic. I'm sure Trudeau has called Trump a Nazi at some point. And for him to have penned an actual medal, it's not, but to honor him in front of the parliament, to not 1, I remind you, but 2 standing ovations.
And that's just the standing ovations we saw. There might have been more.
There might have been more.
Before and after,
Yeah.
There might have been 10. Like, by the time they got out, they're like, God, my hands are killing me. I clapped so much for that Nazi today. Holy crap. And then, like, that would have been that. This is not funny, but it is. Like, they get outside and they're stretching. They're like, oh. They got their hands out doing a Nazi salute and then rubbing. So they're like, man, this guy's awesome. Oh. Hands are killing me.
Straining my arm. Oh.
Let's do our stretches, guys. Calisthenics are important, and they're all like, hey, easy. Put your arm up a little farther, bro. What are you doing?
So if you want to just go ahead and go to Trudeau Nazi 3, this is him trying to explain it away.
All right, let's pull this one up.
It's extremely upsetting that this happened. The speaker has acknowledged his mistake and has apologized. But this is something that is deeply embarrassing to the Parliament of Canada and by extension to all Canadians. I think particularly of Jewish MPs and all members of the Jewish community across the country who are celebrating commemorating Yom Kippur today. I think it's going to be really important that all of us push back against Russian propaganda, Russian disinformation, and continue our steadfast and unequivocal support for Ukraine, as we did last week with announcing further measures to stand with Ukraine in Russia's illegal war against it.
I don't know what you say about that, stupid, but you know, this is the hilarity of the left is they'll do something like this and then they have to come out and just backtrack like nobody's business. Like they got to backpedal, and you're like, oh, what's the matter, buddy? Did you say something really stupid there? Did you make a vocal miscue? Did you guys? Oh, you clapped for a Nazi and you had no, like you were saying, Brandon, no idea historically that yes, the Ukrainians fought the Russians because there were a bunch of Nazis there, and you had no clue. Not one inkling that you were all up there proudly applauding. But that's the thing. They get so wrapped up in their virtue signaling, like this whole thing for the Ukrainians and this whole war. It's just all the virtue signaling. They tripped over themselves to virtue signal for this guy all the while. They're like, oh, that might have been not so good. Hey, guys. Did you know that guy was a Nazi? Like the very people we rail against all the time. And they're like, wait. And then one guy like gets out Google and he's like, bro, do you know the Nazis were fighting in Ukraine against the Russians? And they're like, the who? It says here on Google, Nazis fought against Russia in Ukraine, and they're like, okay, let's pretend that didn't happen. We'll just gloss over that. Let's go to the next thing. We'll support Ukraine, but that old dude can't show up anymore. Find a different old guy.
But
Jesus.
I love what blows my mind is that he still he had nothing to say about it. All he said was that the Speaker of the House has apologized for it. Not like, oh, we should have had more. No, he made the mistake. He apologized for it, but this is still Russian disinformation. Like, we admitted it happened. We admitted it's true, but it's also somehow Russian disinformation and misinformation. And that's the bigger focus. The bigger takeaway is that, Russia made me do it.
Yeah. Putin got in my head with his secret satellite technology and beamed Putin-type information into my head, and I forgot to put on my special, anti-Putin hat, and then he got into my brain and planted this Nazi guy. I thought he made it really sound like it's going to be a really good idea to get this guy up there, and oh my God. So, yeah, I don't know. Isn't, Trudeau, a Castro love child or something? I don't know.
That's the rumor. He does look an awful lot like Fidel Castro.
And he also really is a big fan of Castro, too.
Clearly.
He's a big Castro fan.
With the next story, with the next Trudeau, now we had our fun joking with this story just because it's funny. This next story, we shall remind you, less funny. So if you want to pull up Trucker Protest 1, this is a throwback to whenever Canada was protesting. A lot of Canadians were protesting the COVID measures, and that they were requiring vaccinations for all truck drivers. And so a lot of truck drivers, even ones that were already vaccinated, were totally against a lot of the measures. And so they all started piling a bunch of streets. They were parking their trucks on streets and blocking streets for a protest, which, I don't agree with it by any stretch, but I understand the argument that, you can't just perpetually block streets Like that, you can make that argument in a society that that's not the way to protest something, right? What you can't do is allow groups to like protest and riot and block streets when it's something you agree with or something that makes sense for you politically to let them do it.
Yep.
And then when truckers do it against your measures, to quash their protests. Also, the way he did it, it's not like he just went out there and tried to meet him. He's like, guys, you got to move these cars. Like we're going to start towing or doing something. We're going to start like, no, his reaction was after like 18 days of protest, which in the history of a protest against government measures, it's not a long time particularly, but he was shutting off their bank accounts and threatening to shut off bank accounts if you even sent money in support of a group that was protesting.
Yep. So here's the video. I just lost it. There we go. We'll pull this one up for your viewing displeasure.
Now, as we've been discussing this morning, it is the financial provisions of this Emergencies Act that are particularly concerning to many. The federal government is saying banks have already started to freeze the accounts of people involved in the protests, and they are warning there will be dire financial consequences to come. Hillary Johnstone has been with us for that part of the story. Hillary, we were talking a little bit about this with David Common earlier, but let's explore it a little bit more because in the words of Chrystia Freeland, this will bite. What is the latest?
Yeah, that's right, Heather. That's exactly what we heard from the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister yesterday. We know that financial institutions are already moving to restrict access to both cash and cryptocurrency. That's another big thing here that we're watching as well. So the RCMP have been sharing information with these financial institutions on the protesters, their supporters, the organizers here, trying to sort of starve off or choke off access to money, which of course has now been funding this for some 3 weeks. And the government has cited terrorist fundraising laws, now directing financial institutions to target people who have perhaps donated. You were talking about that with David as well, that it's a little murky here, exactly how this is going to be applied to some people. Chrystia Freeland yesterday not saying how many accounts have been frozen, not saying whose accounts have been frozen, but certainly the threat is there looming for people who have been involved with all of this. We also know that some of these crowdfunding sites, such as GoFundMe, are going to have to register with FinTrack, which is the government's financial intelligence unit. We're going to play a little bit more now. This is what we've heard from Chrystia Freeland about these measures.
Yeah, so everybody remember that good time with the jackass Trudeau and yeah, again, as Brandon said, and I wholeheartedly agree, you should not be blocking and impeding people's natural right to travel. What they were protesting was absolutely valid. What they were protesting over, I fully supported. But yeah, you cannot impede the natural right of people to travel to and from work or wherever they want to go. It's just that it wasn't that. He didn't like the fact that they were protesting his mandates. That's what he didn't like. He doesn't like people who don't like big government. And God forbid, if you don't like big government, then Trudeau is not going to like you very much either. So there is that. I don't think he gave a crap about people getting back and forth to work because he's a big commie. But it was the fact that these people had the gall to protest mandates that he set forth that had no, it wasn't going to solve any issue. It's just, we saw it here in the U.S. We saw it at governments around the world, and it harkens me back again to the words, "Oh, the effects of COVID on this." No, it was the effects of the policies. The COVID policies had the effect. The virus did not go and tell these truckers to block the streets. Also, the virus didn't shut down economies and shut down businesses. It didn't do any of that. It was the policies enacted to fight the COVID. The 2 weeks that ended up being 2 years That's what screwed everybody up. That's what got people inflamed. That's what caused people to overdose and commit suicide and lose their businesses. It wasn't the virus itself. It's these tyrants like Trudeau that caused the damage. And enough people got upset that they did this. And they said, again, not really liking the way they did it. But you have to appreciate the intestinal fortitude that it took to do that. That was pretty awesome to behold.
Well, not to mention that the government was the one that, like at the start of COVID, telling people they couldn't travel places. So the government is also, well, will put a travel restriction on you. And the same thing, to cross the border from from America to Canada, you had to be vaccinated. So in that sense, the government was restricting travel too. And that's why this protest happened, is because of the vaccine mandates that the government was putting on. So yeah, if you were going to protest George Floyd, I'm sure they wouldn't have a problem with you shutting down a street, burning a couple buildings, destroying a couple cars, maybe hurting some people. No problem with that. It's when you peacefully park your truck, which that's what's funny, is I never heard a lot of the Canadian populace going, "Oh, I can't get to work." I never heard that argument. You never heard any, like, I never saw any reporting, which you're sure they would have, of a bunch of Canadian people going, "Well, this is bad for me, and like this is how it's affect." You didn't see that. A lot of those people were actually on the side of the truckers. And so, yeah, it's just a complete government overreach, tyranny at its finest, really. Taking money out of people's bank accounts. The government doing that is it's absolutely insane.
Yeah, you want another if you want more reason why you don't want a central bank, there you go. Because the government and these banks and governments working together, seizing funds, freezing funds. There's another reason you don't want a central bank digital currency, because you won't protest. They spot you on a closed circuit TV, and they're like, "Oh, there's one right there. Shut his bank account off." I mean, there's another reason you don't want a CBDC and you don't want a centralized banking system of any kind like this, because you get the Trudeaus of the world and you want to protest anti-freedom policies and mandates, and you won't have any money. So it was a sight to behold, all these truckers coming together and to protest these stupid mandates, and then watching how powerful government is. And we're talking Canada, not even U.S. Can you imagine what the United States government, if it got to the height like Trudeau did? I mean, it did at certain points, but they never got that bad per se. But let's say you had Trudeau here in the U.S., and he said every truck driver must be vaccinated, and and it just mandated it, and boom, and you had, because there's a hell of a lot of truck drivers in the U.S., and they all decided to just park their trucks and block traffic. I just wonder what that would have looked like. But yeah, it's you'd have to be. This word, Catherine's kind of taken over this word, but I'm going to use it a lot this episode. What kind of nanard do you have to be to be sad that Trudeau is leaving office? You have to be a really big nanard to be saddened by the fact that Trudeau has resigned his office.
Oh, I mean, you'd have to have like 6 pronouns and just love everything that the government you just have to be like, I love my free healthcare. The government should be giving me free housing. The government should be giving me all of these things, showering me with its governmental love. I mean, I actually have a friend. There's someone I know I went to high school with who actually moved to Canada during Trump's presidency. And it's like,
Good luck, buddy.
You reap what you sow.
Yeah, because the Canadians a lot of Canadian, well, a lot of people in Canadian government don't talk about how many of them, if they need a surgery and they don't want to wait 6 months to a year, come to the U.S. and get their surgery and then go back across the border and go home, for recovery. They don't talk about that up there.
Well, it's just everyone goes to the hospital for everything. So like if you need like emergency care for something and if you don't have the like outward, like if you're not bleeding out in the lobby, they won't see you in a timely fashion. There was a story of a couple weeks ago of a guy who was waiting 6 hours and then died on the floor in the lobby of the hospital because they didn't have a room for him. He was just waiting and waiting and waiting for hours. And then he died on the floor in the hospital. And so, I mean, you play stupid games like socialism, you win stupid prizes like that.
Real big, like you're trying to set the record for the dumbest prize won ever. And we have people in this country who want to implement Canada's health policies, their insurance,
what's
everything.
so funny too, like if you tried to explain Medicare as if it was a Russian idea, you'd have a lot of conservatives against it. You're like, no, did you hear what Russia's doing in their socialist medicine? Everybody pays in and the government just divvies out your health care when you're over the age of 65 or whatever it is. Like, that's how it works. And can you believe they do that? You would actually probably have a lot of older conservatives go, yeah, we don't want socialism in our country. Socialism's always bad. No matter what it is, it's socialism. We'd fight wars to stop the spread of socialism and communism.
And then we have
But then you're
Medicare.
like, wait, we want to take away your Medicare. We're gonna make it where you have to go to the private market again to get health insurance. Whoa. You can't take away my health care. It's like,
Yeah, when so there was, I think it was during the when they were going to pass the Affordable Care Act, and there were people holding up signs that said, "Get your government hands off my Medicare." Huh? Where does Medicare come from exactly? It's not privately. That was a government created thing. But yeah, there were people. I remember Bill Maher having this little clip of people holding up signs that said, "Get your government hands off my Medicare." It's like, oh, okay, that's a really bad take, yo. Like, that's a really, really bad take to say, "Get your government hands off my government-created insurance policies." Yes.
so if you just said this to what's funny too is if you said this to the average Democrat, if you just said like big government and big business are colluding together to screw over the American people, right? You'd have a lot of Democrats agree with that. And if you said my solution is less government for those big corporations to have less power, they go, no. The answer is always more government for those corporations to buy up and have more power. Like, the simple logic of a Democrat's answer to any problems is just comical on like the simple level of like, if you just take 5 seconds to think about it more in depth, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, it's again, I don't know how many I don't know how many times I've had to go ahead real quick.
Oh, I was
before
just
you
going to
lose
say
your
that
train of thoughts.
segue. No. I just said that segues really nicely into that Seattle waffle shop story you sent me.
So it's just the amount of times that I've had to explain to people when they talk about insurance that all the feds would have had to have done was written a law that said, or I guess the better way of putting it is, take away the regulation that you couldn't buy your insurance across state lines. Simple fix. Eliminate that regulation. Eliminate that regulation that said, hey, and then it's like, oh, if you want to buy insurance from a company 5 states away, you could. Created loads of competition and driven the prices of health insurance down dramatically. And our government, in its infinite wisdom, did the opposite. Yeah, let me pull up these. Let's see. Is this it here? This is one.
If you want to pull them up, I'll read them one at a time, starting with 1 through 4.
And I can't. Let me see. I can't see the numbers on these. I just see.
It doesn't say 1, 2, 3, and 4 on it.
Oh wait.
For Seattle
There's
Waffle Shop.
one. Why do I only have? Oh wait. I'm losing my mind here. I see number 1. Let me pull that one up.
I'll just read if you don't have the rest of them, I'll just read them really quick. So this is from Fox Business, written by Alexander Hall. The title of the article is Seattle Waffle Shop Owner Shutters Business Amid New $20 Minimum Wage. I've cried every day. So this is this lady named Karina Lukenbach, and she was the owner of West Seattle Waffle Shop. Lamented that she had no choice but to close down her business when the city's new minimum wage law went into effect on January 1st, raising hourly pay to $20.76. She founded the Bebop Waffle Shop more than 10 years ago after migrating from New York, and specified that her business was already struggling due to inflation and lower foot traffic from more people working from home. But she said, this is financially just not going to make sense anymore because just for me, this increase would cost me $32,000 more a year. According to the New York Post, the new $20.76 per hour law, which is $4 higher than the state's minimum wage requirements, applies to large and small business and eliminates tip or benefit credits. And then numerous locally owned businesses that once served as gathering places for the community have been forced to close down amid the COVID-19 pandemic and its economic fallout, and the Bebop Waffle Shop, named after its owner's dog, appears to be no exception.
And these people in Seattle, I don't know. I would almost bet that this person voted for these people who run the city and make these rules and laws and stipulations about the pay in Seattle. So $20.76. And I just wonder if she's a leftist, how many of her lefty friends are going to just not talk to her anymore because how dare she, talk smack and shut her business down. And now these people are going to lose their jobs because she doesn't want to pay out the $32,000 a year. Like, they'll make that seem like that's a drop in the bucket. I do know that most restaurants don't run on a very high profit margin.
No.
Like, is it not? It's like 3 or 4%, maybe.
There'll be some bars where the waitresses make just a little bit, like successful bars will have their waitresses and bartenders making marginally less than the owners themselves. Like the owners of many small restaurants, like you said, they're not rolling in it. They might be middle class, upper middle class if you've been doing it for a while and it's a very successful business. But if your business was already struggling because like less people went out, prices are up higher, and then now again, this is the inflation cycle that everyone misses when they ask for a higher minimum wage, is that you increase wages, so then X store has to charge more, so then you have to pay more wages, so then the store has to charge more, and it just continues like this until the only people left are big businesses that can afford to pay. So then it's just killer for small businesses.
Yeah, and again, folks, us here, here in Missouri, we're going up to $15 an hour. How long do you think it's going to be before that 15 somebody comes along with another initiative petition to drive it up to $18 an hour because they don't understand basic economics? Not only that, again, don't forget, if you have 15 or more employees, you will be required to give them 7 paid sick days a year. 14 or fewer are going to have to get 5 paid sick days a year. So not only did we raise the minimum, or no, we didn't. Not only did a bunch of people vote to raise the minimum wage here in Missouri, they also decided to add another crippling effect to that piece of legislation that's going to revise the state statutes here in Missouri about paid sick days. And so if you take five, if they're paying $15 an hour and they're working 8 hours a day, that's $120 a day before taxes. You take five of that, that's $600 a year per employee. So if you have 14, so that's what, $8,400 a year. Now, to some people, that'd be like, oh, that's no big deal. But when you're talking the price, let's say it's a restaurant, the price of food keeps going up and the price of everything else keeps going up. And now you're adding 84, let's say for some reason you run a pretty decent sized restaurant and you employ 14 people, $8,400 a year of cost gets added to you on top of everything else and the higher wages that are going to, how easy are you going to be able to afford to stay in business? Or are you going to cut your labor force? That's what you're going to do. Because you don't want to close the thing that you fought so hard to build and maintain and keep in operation. You're going to cut staffing. You're going to drop the amount of people that you employ. So hopefully you can stay in business. And people that, and I listen, I'm not a business owner and I have no business operating a business. My mind isn't good enough for that, and I understand that, so I don't attempt it. But I understand enough after working for small businesses to know this crap don't work. And all it does is it reduces the workforce. If you're in a little town like Owensville here, we've got a few fast food places and we've got some mom and pop restaurants. Are they going to keep the same amount of people staffed and then raise the cost of everything in the restaurant? Or are they going to try to keep their food costs the same, but then lower the amount of staffing, making everybody else there having to work twice as hard to keep things rolling? Do they think about that? No, they don't, because they don't see the day-to-day costs of running a business. They see their paycheck, and then something else they're going to notice too is the amount of extra taxes that are going to come out of their check every week because they're making $15 an hour and everything around them goes up. So they just notice they're really not making any more money at the end of the day when all their bills are paid. It's the same stupid cycle is going to continue. So until people learn some basic economics, we're going to continue to see this because there are a lot of youth that are going to vote yes on this. And there are a lot of, people in their 30s and 40s maybe even voting for this. And it's because they've never run a business and they don't understand. They just don't understand.
It's total ignorance blinded by people who do know and will sell you the lie. Like we were saying a second ago, who benefits the most from every small business closing down? The big businesses. And those big businesses give a lot more money to politicians than small businesses. So the government is just going to be like, they'll sell the lie to the public of, we'll raise your minimum wage to a living wage. Everyone deserves a living wage for those who can find a job now because no one has a job. Or like everyone can, we'll make minimum wage $15 an hour, and then a gallon of milk will be $8, and a 12 pack of eggs will be $6 because we paid you $15 an hour. So living wage maybe for 6 months until the inflation until like the market catches up to your scheme and the prices just get raised across the board, because corporations are always greedy. The more power you give them, the greedier they become. It's not, it's not like when COVID started, businesses became greedy and decided to raise the prices. You pumped a bunch of currency into the economy. So eventually everyone was just going to have more money and things are just naturally going to cost more. You didn't raise the number of total finished goods into the market, which is literally by definition the only way to solve inflation, is to have more produced goods for the same or less amount of money.
And if you work in a place like I work, you see the continued struggle of getting enough product in the door to operate efficiently. It's still, the supply chain is still screwed up. It will continue to be screwed up for a long time. And even big businesses like the one that I work for, continue to find suppliers who can get them the product they need in a timely fashion. It is a continued struggle. Not to mention, all those products cost more. It is, if we cannot teach, and this is very important, folks, because this isn't something that we're going to wave a magic wand and fix. If we cannot teach the younger generations that the inflationary issues, the rising costs of everything these problems are created by central planners who want to tinker with inflation rates, and a government body that wants to print and print and print money and flood the market with currency, causing it to lose its value and creating more inflation. If we cannot get the youth to understand decent and just basic economics, and that the way government is supposed to operate, and teach them about ending the Federal Reserve, until we do that. Yeah.
It's Murray Rothbard's What Has Government Done to Our Money?
Yeah.
I reread this book earlier this week. Gem for exactly what you're describing, for teaching people exactly what the government has done to our money, what the Federal Reserve really is.
Yep. And if we can't get the youth to understand that the economic policies of their government is what causes these problems, that this cycle will continue until it just absolutely bankrupts the nation. Yeah, and Voodoo Queen says higher wages equals higher tax bracket. Absolutely. Every time you increase the wages a decent chunk, you are put into a higher tax bracket, and the government gets more of your earnings. And they love it when you ask for a higher wage. When you mandate in a state or wherever a higher wage, they're absolutely enthralled with the idea of you doing this.
I will say really quick, not that I disagree with what you're saying, but there is a misnomer to that does bug me a little bit when some people say it. It's like when you make more money and you move into a new tax bracket, that doesn't count for the original money you made. Once you reach a new tax bracket, it's only that extra money that gets taxed extra. But like when you artificially raise wages, then you are adding to the inflation problem.
Yeah. And any way you slice it, it's somebody's making out like a bandit, which is the government, and you
big
are
business.
and you are not. And yeah, if you want, and that is the other thing, that the ironic part of this is a lot of these people complain about these big greedy corporations don't want to pay, and they don't understand that they're helping the big greedy corporations, like you were saying, eliminate their competition in the marketplace. And it's like, y'all got to figure this out at some point, because we can't hold your hands forever. You're adults. Figure it the hell out, or watch the ruination of your country. And then we'll see how well the argument of these greedy corporations ruined everything works out for you. All right, folks. Well, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Before I go, let me remind everybody, I think quite soon, I would say in the next week or two, I will be moving to the weekend shift. Now, I will put stuff out on social media and try to get the word out. Maybe I'll write another email. And we originally were going to do Wednesday nights when we started recording our show on Wednesdays. But after talking to Tom last week and agreeing that the first Tuesday of every month we will do a legislative review, our show recording will move to Tuesday night. So we will be live streaming on Tuesday nights, same time, 6:30, but it will be on Tuesday nights instead of Wednesday nights. But that will be coming rather soon. My boss has talked to me about moving to weekend shift soon. I'm going into work tomorrow. I'm going to talk to the weekend shift ops manager, line things out with him, talk to one guy who's going to have to come to weekends with me and train me on things for a while. But that is coming rather soon. So be ready. Instead of Friday nights, we will be moving to a Tuesday night. And again, don't forget, the first Tuesday of each month, we will be doing legislative review. I think Tom talked Catherine into coming on also as related and relaying things as money is going to do, how this money will pay for said legislation or how it's going to affect the budget. So Catherine's going to look into the money side of things. Tom and all of us are going to look into into certain bills, read through them. We're going to vote. We're going to discuss the constitutionality of the bill or whatever. But it's going to be a big deep dive into some of these bills as far as financial and constitutional ramifications of these pieces of legislation. So that will be the first Tuesday of each month. I hope you will spread the word about this. This is a good way to educate our fellow Missourians on what kind of horrible bills are moving through the Senate and the House, just like they do every freaking year here in Missouri. But again, folks, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Again, thanks to everybody, and we'll see you next Friday, should be next Friday, right here on the Missouri Liberty Report.